Welcome. I'm Fearing Jockey. So today I want us to have an overview of the physical lectures we have had so that we're able to build on that as we move on to our next lecture. So um, as part of this course, we first looked at the implementation language. So we went through the properties of Java as a programming language. And these are some of the things that we discussed. The different properties and characteristics of Java language, which includes platform independent. It's a high-level language which is both compiled and interpreted. We discussed that, what that means. We discussed what a compiler is. We also discussed what the interpreters are. Um, um, and their advantages and disadvantages. We also discussed what a JVM is. This is an example of how you develop a Java program where you start by developing the source code and then you compile it to give you the bytecode, and then the bytecode is interpreted to the machine specific language. So we said that you write the program using Java, which is high level language. Then you compile it, you get the machine code, but then the machine code you get, which is Java bytecode, is the machine language for JVM, that is Java Virtual Machine, and then you can now interpret that to run in any machine in the world as long as that machine has Java capabilities, or the Java interpreter, or the what we call the JRE of how that is achieved. So Java, my program.java. So you save your program using .java, then you feed it to the compiler, then it will convert it to a .class file. .class file is the bytecode. So this is the source code, this is the bytecode. Then you give it to the interpreter, which is a Java virtual machine, and then it is converted to machine specific language. So again, you're able to show that this is actually this is written once. So you write once, you compile once, but then you interpret every time you want to run it for a different machine. Okay, so the same program can be run using different machines. That this is what we refer to as machine independence or technology independence. That a Java program can run in any machine. So you just write it, then compile it, and then after you compile it, then you can interpret the output and it can run in any machine. So, and this is an example of a Java program, the Hello World class. So this is class Hello World app. So this is just an example that prints and display the words Hello World. We also discussed the Hello World program as our first Java program. If you remember, so we discussed the different parts of this program, including this first part here is basically the comments. So comments starts with a slash and an asterisk, and then ends with an asterisk and a slash, which means this is a multi-line comment. We also have single line comment where we simply use a double slash, and then whatever follows there is a whatever follows there is a comment. So actually this string word here should be here. So this one should be, this string should be a continuation. So and if it exits in two lines, it means that whatever is follows the slash, the double slash, is a comment. Okay, then we say, so to declare a Java program, you start by declaring a class using the keyword class, and then you can also use public as an accessibility modifier. We shall discuss that later. But for now, just use public class followed by the class name. And we discuss the properties of the class name. If you remember, you can refer back to the notes for that first class, for that physical lecture. Then the class has a body that starts with an open close bracket and ends with a close bracket. So this is where the class starts, this is where the class ends. By putting a comment and saying head of class. Okay. Then after that, the class has a body. So whatever happens inside these brackets, everything inside here is part of the class. From where this bracket ends starts to where it ends, whatever is inside there is part of the body, the class body. So inside the class body is the statements that you want to be executed. Okay, and in our class we only have one method, which is the main method. So we said every program should have a main method. The main method is where the Java program starts running. Okay, so for us, we said that for a start, we simply appreciate that a Java program should have a main method. Okay, and we discussed this in details in our previous class, so we won't spend much time here. So this is basically an explanation of that first class. So after this, we also discussed use of variables. So this one we did. I'm also going to go very fast on this. So in variables, we discussed, for instance, how the different operators in Java. So all these are different operators in Java. Okay. So these are signs that you can use in Java and some of the operations that you can do in Java, including assignment operator, arithmetic operators, and this is just an example of that code that you can use. So how these operators can be combined. The plus operator, this is for joining different parameters like strings and also doing additions. Unary operators, we discussed that. So these are just examples of the operators that we discussed in our previous class. So this is an example. We looked at this code, you remember. So you can access the source code again on the e-learning platform. The equality and or relational operators, we discussed this. So these are just part of the operators that we discussed. We looked at what variables are. We discussed that and how we use them in Java. So these are just examples of variables. We talked of how variables are declared in Java. So again, we talked of data types, the different types of data. We said you classify data types into two. So you have primitive types and we have derived types. Okay. And then we said these primitive types, they can be numerical or non-numerical. Numerical can be real or integer. Real includes floats and double. Integers has much more than this. We have integer, byte long. And I gave you some assignment for you to read more on this. Then a numerical, you have Boolean and character. Okay. Then for derived, we have interfaces, we have classes, and this is what we shall be discussing with much more. So the classes and interfaces, we shall be discussing them more. So we also discussed the initialization of variables, that is assigning the first variable. And we say that when you declare a variable, you create a memory location which you give a value as an address. So the variable is basically an address to that memory location. And then when you initialize, then you give the first value to that memory location. Okay. We also talked the way you can declare different variables at the same time, separating them with a comma and using a semicolon to at the end. So, and we gave examples. So then we discussed global variables against local variables. Then on global variables, we also discussed, if you remember, variables. We also broke them into two parts, if you remember. We broke them into what we call class variables and what we call object variables. So object variables are also called instance variables. For the class variables, you also refer to them as static variables. And we discussed the difference, if you remember. So class variables are controlled at the class level. Object variable or instance variables are controlled at the object level. We discussed all those in details, if you remember. Then I give an example. Of the class rectangle. So we discussed this, and this will form the beginning of our next class. This example here, it will form the beginning of our next lecture. Okay, as an example. So if you remember this, so I'll also put the course code I'll also put the source code for this class or the e-learning platform. Okay. And finally, the last thing we discussed was Java methods. You remember? Okay. So we looked at the parts of a method in Java. Okay. And we said methods are basically like the functions in other programming, in other types of programming, like structured programming, we have functions. In Java, we don't have functions, we have methods. And we discussed that. And that